What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Inside the Shell podcast. Today's episode is a really powerful one, I think. I'm sitting down with Jacob Green here, a powerlifter whose life took a turn no one ever plans for. Jacob was deep into lifting, training hard, building strength, and when he was diagnosed with cancer, he went through chemotherapy, watched his body change, his strength fade, and his identity get tested in ways most of us can't even imagine. But today, Jacob is here not just as a survivor, but someone rebuilding himself, returning to the barbell, and redefining what strength I think really means. So Jacob, thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Ryan. I appreciate you having me. Happy to be here and just share my story, give
I'm,
some
I'm,
insight.
yeah, I'm really glad you showed up because you got a story that a lot of people I think need to hear, and I think it'll provide a lot of good wisdom for you just being here. So thank you. So we're gonna start with the first segment, which is quote of the week. And honestly, I'm gonna have you go first. I'm curious to see what you brought, man.
All right, so my quote of the week is kind of the quote I now live by, but it's strength through weakness. And basically what that means, actually, you know what? I'll cite a verse. So in 2 Corinthians 12, starting in verse 8, Paul, he's talking about his thorn, which is his vision. He lost his vision, and he's kind of pleading with God, asking him, why is this happening to me? He's told, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in my infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So yeah, that's my motto that I live by. I think true strength is shown through weakness because, when we decrease, God can increase in our lives. And that's where true strength comes from. Strength comes from God. So that's my motto. When we're
I love
weak,
that.
then we're strong.
I love that. Paul is such a strong writer. I feel like me and my buddies, we have a Bible study like every Wednesday night, and we're going through Galatians right now. And there was a passage I
That's funny.
actually,
I'm reading that with my wife right now.
no way, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing like a whole like 8-week thing on it. It's been fun. It's honestly been kind of cool to see how Paul writes, honestly, because sometimes, like, I have a very old version of the Bible. I got my dad's Bible from like 1985, and it's sometimes hard to decipher. And then some of my other buddies bring their like new King James Bible, and it's got like whole um, excerpts on the side that show or like explain the meaning of what Paul is trying
Like
to
a study
say.
Bible.
Yeah, and those are
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah, I kind of want to get one, but they're they're a little expensive, and I feel bad. It's my dad's Bible. I gotta keep reading
Is
that.
it King James or is it New
Yeah,
King
I'm
King
pretty
James?
sure it's just King James.
That
Yeah,
yeah, that's a hard read.
yeah.
I do
So some,
I do like that translation though. I go New King James just so it's
hmm
a bit easier to read, but
yeah,
I try to stay away from like NIV or
mm,
other ones just because the
yeah,
translation can sometimes they completely take out verses.
hmm And
Crazy.
for me, it was like reading Shakespeare at times. I'm like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't understand what I'm reading here.
It gets
No,
abstract.
I love that quote though. That's awesome and that's powerful. I got my quote from a TED Talk I listened to the other day. So a little different turn, but so it's this woman. Her name's Bevy Smith, and she talks about how to discover your authentic identity. And it was interesting. And she had a quote that I kind of resonated with, and it goes like this: "I'm not worried about my future because I'm firmly rooted in the present." And she goes on to explain like the three big things you need to do in your life to really find your true identity and don't attach things that don't represent you. So she talks about like not settling for something less, make peace with aging. Like that's honestly something that we're all going to struggle with eventually. And don't second guess your decisions. So I thought it was really good because if you're firmly rooted in the present, especially like you have been, through your whole journey of having cancer and God being with you through that entire process, if you weren't rooted in that, in the now, right? What's your life going to look like if you weren't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's actually a verse that kind of relates to that. I forget where, but it says something to the effect of like, don't worry about tomorrow because there's plenty to worry about today.
Mm,
And like speaking towards, I guess you could say anxiety, because it's kind of like a form of, if you're worrying about tomorrow, then yeah, it's a form of anxiety. So
for
just
sure.
like focus on right now, the present. Definitely a good habit to get into.
Right. And it's because we don't know the outcome of some of the things in the future. And only God really knows that. And He's writing our story. So I feel like if we focus on what we have going on right in front of us, like today, for example, this podcast that we're doing, like we're going to have a better conversation, right? If you and me are focused on the conversation we're having rather than what we think about what we got going on afterwards. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Definitely like improves the quality of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like for the sake of, it's good not to worry because you don't want to. A lot of the times you'll be worrying about something that doesn't even end up happening anyways. But on top of that, it improves the quality of the moment, such as like our conversation right now. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
definitely.
So I wanted to kind of delve back into your life because I find it so fascinating. Before cancer entered your life and kind of, I would say, screwed up for a big amount of time, what role did powerlifting play in your identity? Because you're a strong dude. You're a strong dude, man.
I appreciate that. Well, like actually, not too long before I found out that I had cancer, before I got sick, I was debating to like change gears and not stop powerlifting, but kind of take a step back because we were in Italy at the time.
Dang.
There was they have powerlifting gyms, but there was none near us, and we were stuck
Mm,
on army base, and the equipment was just like really bad, very limiting. And I was getting interested in like I wanted to do jujitsu and like
cool.
some classes they had. And also I was just getting like weaker somehow. And I mean,
Mm,
now I know why. And my coach at the time, I'm actually going to get back with him soon, but he can attest to this. Like I was getting weaker and losing weight despite being young and I thought healthy.
hmm
So, but before that, it was like definitely a pretty significant part of my life. I traveled a lot to compete. The biggest meet I did was USAPL Nationals back in 23, I think. And then after that, I think I PR'd my total in May of 2024,
What was your total?
57.5. So I was
Wow.
chasing a 800 kg total. I
Dang.
was hoping to do that. I think, well, actually, I was going to do 2025. No, I was going to do 2024 nationals, but I ended up dropping out
Mm,
because like I couldn't even, I couldn't even handle the stress of powerlifting at the time.
yeah.
And I think looking back, I definitely was starting to get sick then, like
Mm,
fatigue, and which I know we'll probably get into that in the next couple of questions. I can talk more about that. But yeah, powerlifting has always been like a very big part of my life ever since 2022. That's when I started powerlifting. Before that, I did like general strength training, nothing serious, but I actually competed in 2022, um, in like May. So yeah, it's been a pretty big part of my life. Takes up a lot of time,
yeah,
many,
I bet.
many
I
hours
bet.
a week.
How did you get into powerlifting? Let's take a deeper outlook on it.
So, well, first of all, my brother got me into training. So shout out to my brother.
Heck yeah. Love that.
He was my first training partner. We used to go like almost not every day, but like 5 times a week, I'd say. I'd be getting home from school, he'd be getting home from work or maybe college at the time. So he got me into training, and then we ended up switching gym. We were working out at like a HOA gym, and we were like, all right, I think it's time for an upgrade. So
Yeah.
we ended up going to the shop gym, which is in Ashburn, Virginia. At the time, it was like the gym for powerlifting. I mean, it's still pretty good, but at the time there was like Ashton Ruska, which many of you probably know him, world champion, incredible powerlifter. So guys like that at the gym that created that environment. So I actually remember walking into the gym and seeing him, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And he was like in his singlet, no shirt on underneath. And I saw him. I mean, if you guys know Ashton, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
And
He's intimidating.
I walked in and we locked eyes for a second, and then he like, I don't know, he like spit in the trash can or something. And I was just like, whoa, this is where I need to be. Like, I want guys like this around me to like push me. It turns out he's a nice guy. But it was like super intimidating. I think in
Yeah.
a good way,
Mm-hmm.
because it pushes you to like, you know, it's that type of environment where you want to be the best version of yourself. So that's around the time that I started to see other people powerlifting, and then I don't know, I think I was somewhat familiar with the sport, but I didn't know much about it. And then I started doing some just some like free templates online. I think I did the Calgary barbell, which some of you may know that. It's Bryce, what's his last name? I forget. But it was like a free program. So me and my brother did that, and then I eventually got a coach, and the rest is history. I've been doing it ever since, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you plan on competing? You said not this year, but next year? Or are you transitioning into a different kind of phase, you think?
So I did compete in what was it? April? No. Wait, let me check real quick. I did compete like recently after it was like my post cancer. It was in August.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was like fresh off chemo. I was just getting my hair back and stuff. But I did 725 total. So not quite
Wow.
my best, but I was actually surprised I could have gotten to that point.
The muscle memory was there.
Yeah, and I had been powerlifting. I mean, as soon as I was out of the hospital, I started powerlifting again.
Mm.
Not again. I mean, I just the only reason I stopped was because I was in the hospital for 6 weeks straight, and I wasn't even allowed to go outside, which was rough. But so then I started right away when I got out. I was all like atrophied and everything hurt. But yeah, so I competed in August. Then so I was gonna do USAPL nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, am I about to reveal this? I was gonna like maybe keep this under wraps, but I don't think anybody cares anyways. But I was gonna do VA states, which would have been in February. But then I tore my hamstring a couple weeks ago.
Jeez.
Kind of like slight tear,
Slight tear.
which has set me back a little bit. But I was already like on the edge. I didn't really want to do VA states. I don't have many goals in the USAPL anymore. And I was gonna do VA states, which would have qualified me for nationals.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided, as of now, I am not going to be doing that. But I do want to do Rising Tide, which is a PA meet.
Okay.
It's not announced yet when it's going to be, but it's probably, actually, I think it's in September, but I don't know where. It hasn't been announced yet. So that is my next goal. And I'm going to,
PA as in Pittsburgh, like Pennsylvania?
no, Powerlifting America. So,
Okay.
so right
I was gonna
now
say
I'm
that's
in,
close to me, dude.
Well, actually, there's a lot of PA meets in PA, funny enough. I was just in PA.
Were you?
Yeah, I got some family in around Pittsburgh, so I was at
Okay,
my cousin's wedding.
nice. Yeah, I'm about an hour-ish, hour and a half from there, more in
Okay.
like the Ohio area.
Oh, I got family in Ohio too.
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so that's my next goal. And that my goal still is 800 kilo total. So I'm definitely still powerlifting. I'm in it for the long haul. The only reason I considered quitting, and I did stop for a bit, like before when I was sick, is just because I was regressing despite having Marcellus Williams, the best coach, and like good nutrition, good sleep.
Mhm. Yeah.
I literally was just like, I guess this is just not for me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, didn't make any sense. And now, like, obviously, we know why. So, but now that that's in the past, I am definitely still powerlifting and I still have goals. Like I said, 800 kilo total. I'm going to be bulking up to 93 kilos. So in USAPL, it's 90 kilo. PA, it's 93. So I'll put on a little bit of weight. So yeah, that's like that's my goals for now.
Hell yeah. I love that. So you mentioned your weights were going down, the numbers were going down, and you didn't know why at the time. Was there was it gradual? Did it happen like several times in a week, in a month, and you're kind of like, what's going on? And you had to talk to your coach, or was it like, was there a defining moment where you're like, what's happening to me?
I'd say it was more gradual, because at first the weights weren't going down necessarily. It was just like it was plateauing very hard, which wasn't like I was used to PRing every block, no matter the rep range, even at that even at that point. But then like I'd say beginning to mid 2024 is when I like just stopped doing that, and it was more like I was still progressing because I PR'd my total in May, but it took like a lot more strategic pacing it out rather than usually I could just like, PR every block, every block. But that I kind of had to like pull back first and then push into that meet. But then towards the end of 2024 is when I was like doing weights that aren't PRs. It would just be like maintaining.
Hmm.
They would be like hard, harder than usual. Like a 600-pound squat at the time. Actually, it was a lot. The last time I squatted 600, it was like an RP 10 or like 9.5. And usually that, like I've squatted 628 for like RP 9 at my meet, and or maybe 9.5 too. But still, it was like it should have been relatively easy
Hmm.
for a single on the week 4, but it was definitely not. So that's when the numbers started to kind of go down in like I could still do it, but it was way harder. And then
Hmm.
by the time I decided to drop out of 2025, or sorry, 24 nationals in September, that was when I think I was peaking for my meet. So I was 4 weeks out and I squatted like 250 kilos, so 550. And it was like RP 9. And then I tried to bench. Bench was like okay, but still felt really heavy. And then I tried to deadlift and I got like sciatica all down my back. I think I was like at 2 reds. And I was like, all right, I was like, I'm dropping out. I was already
Hmm.
considering it before then because I was feeling so beat up. And like I said, that 600-pound squat, I think was like the block before that, maybe. So definitely gradual. And then at the end, that's when I just was like, all right, I'm gonna call it.
Yeah.
So
What was the emotion when you got the news that you had cancer, when you had, like, the doctor tell you? Like, what was the emotion? What was your thoughts going through that time?
I think I like completely disassociated, honestly. I mean, me and my wife, so to set the scene, I had been going to the doctors in Italy for like 3 weeks or somewhere around like about a month, and they had no ideas. Towards the end of our time in Italy, I got a CT scan and we were gone before we even got the results back. The reason we were gone is because we were going to Georgia for airborne school, so like an army school. My wife was jumping out of planes and I was supposed to be
Yo,
yeah.
you can't just drop that information, just go, "And yeah, so" that's so cool, dude.
Yes, yeah, she's a badass. She's an army officer, and she was in a
Wow.
airborne unit in Italy. It's called jump school, and you
Mhm.
basically you go, you take a bunch of classes, you do a bunch of training, and then like the last 5 days. No, no, yeah, I think like the last week you do a bunch of jumps out of planes. If you guys want to see like what it looks like, you can look up on like Instagram. Just look up like army, like airborne jump school or something like that.
Dude, that's insane. I've always wanted to go skydiving, just maybe once or twice, and your wife does that, like, just for
It's way closer to the ground though.
okay.
So like skydiving is like way up high,
Mhm.
but for them it's a lot closer to the ground. And it's way scarier too. And there's like freak accidents too. Like people, if you lock your knees on the way down, because it's like when you skydive, you hit all that air on the way down and it
Yeah, you're
slows.
just floating. Yeah.
But when you start like here, I don't know exactly the height, but it's like a lot lower than skydiving.
Mhm.
You don't really catch a lot of like friction. You just kind of are dive bombing down. So a lot of people will go down and have their knees locked and they'll just like snap. So you're
Yeesh.
supposed to keep your feet close together and then like roll to kind of like blunt the impact of it.
Hmm.
But so yeah. So we were going for that and I was coming to watch her jump. She ended up going like a week earlier than me, and my flight didn't line up, so I was a week after.
Mhm.
And around this time, I was getting really, really sick. My heart rate was resting at like 20, 130.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had a gnarly cough. I was getting migraines every night, like excruciating migraines. I couldn't even sleep. Trouble breathing, night sweats.
Hmm.
I have a whole YouTube video where I go very in depth about my symptoms.
Mhm.
It's somewhat in order, but it kind of leads up to my diagnosis. So yeah, that's like what I was dealing with sickness wise. She was gone and I was like alone in the house, which was pretty rough. And then I ended up getting to Georgia and day one, I slept one night and then we woke up in the morning and we went to the ER on base just to get seen like right away.
Mhm.
And at first they thought I had tuberculosis. So they like put me in like a quarantine room. They were like kind of being extra careful. I did some blood work. I was just telling them my symptoms, and then I think they ruled that out pretty quickly. And then they sent me to get a CT scan on the Army base, and we were just sitting in the quarantine room, waiting for the results on that, and also waiting. I think no, yeah, we were just waiting on that. And they came back in the room, and they were like, "Okay, so we got the CT, got the results." And right then and there, they were like, this is either a germ cell tumor, which is unlikely,
Mhm.
or it's cancer, probably lymphoma. And then that's when I just everything just like zoomed out and I was like, I just disassociated. And I mean, we had our suspicions that something was really up, but that, nothing can really prepare you for that.
No,
And
yeah.
at first, I thought it was like lung cancer, which would have been a lot worse if anybody listening knows anything about cancer. Lymphoma is pretty treatable, especially for young people. The reason mine gave me a lot of complications is the position of it, because it was in between my lungs, pressing up against my heart and moving my trachea out of the way. So it was causing way more complications than a lymphoma usually would. Usually they just find it on a scan, you do some chemo and you'd be done. But since it was in that position, that's why I got hospitalized and stuff. And yeah, so honestly, that's kind of a blessing in disguise though, because I think had it have been in my stomach, I don't think I would have because if in the lymphatic system it goes from like your neck all the way down into your stomach. And if I
Mhm.
had it in my stomach, I don't think I would have caught it very soon. Because even though this was in such a bad position and we caught it, I think it was stage 3. I was still handling it relatively well because that thing was like literally like this big,
Holy,
like almost like in between like a softball and a football somewhere.
like a mini basketball, dude.
Yeah, yeah, it was big. So yeah, it's kind of like I see it as a good thing that it was in that position,
Mhm.
just because it caused enough issues for me to be like, okay, I need to like go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Um,
So what
and yeah, yeah, go ahead.
what happened to your CT scan in Italy then? Because you said you took one in Italy and then you had one on the army base. So what happened to that one?
So we were the CT scan in Italy. It took about 2 weeks to get scheduled or something like that. It was a long time. Yeah, yeah. Free healthcare sounds great until you live it, but it was rough there, and they're like 25 years behind, um, as far as like medical. But by the time I got it, we were like waiting on the results.
Mhm.
I think I got it like days before we left on a CD, so it hadn't been like evaluated yet, but we got the
Okay.
image. So I took
Mm.
it just in case they needed it in the States, but they never, I don't even think they hardly looked at it because they just took another one as soon as I got there.
Mm.
So, and I think there was a report from the Italian doctors, but I had to get it translated and it was something similar. They just said like mediastinal mass, which I think that just means like a mass in the middle of your chest. And then, so yeah, once they found that out, they immediately transferred me to uh to Emory. And I think that was St. Joseph or St. Francis. It was in Columbus, Georgia. So and that's from that point on, that's when I was stuck, just getting transferred from hospital to hospital for 6 weeks straight.
Jeez, man. I can't imagine the pain you must have gone through.
Yeah, it was a lot of I mean, yeah, a lot of crazy like I could sit here for hours talking about all the events that happened, like all the procedures that went wrong, throwing up blood, like I don't know, I could go on and on. But yeah, so that's when they transferred me to I can't remember which one, but it was in Columbus, Georgia at first
Okay.
at the Emory Hospital. And I went into the ICU.
So let me ask you this. As like a powerlifter, as like an elite athlete, you could say, in your sport, what was the hardest part about hearing that news and especially being in the hospital for, you said 6 weeks, moving around from hospital to hospital?
Yeah, I started in Georgia, in Columbus, and I went to Atlanta. Then I went then we convinced them to discharge us so we could drive 10 hours up to Inova, which is closer to my parents. But as far as like how it affected me as a powerlifter, all that kind of flew out the window. Like it was
Yeah.
really like the last thing on my mind. It was more like, okay, I need to get through this for my family and of course my wife, who I had only been married to for, let's see, it was January. So about 6 months we had been married.
Wow.
We got married in June 2024. So as far as like how I didn't really think about powerlifting right away,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, it crossed my mind. And I mean, the whole time I had like this peace about it, like I would be okay. It's just gonna suck for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely was like hungry to get back in the gym because I knew like the longer I stay in the hospital, the longer I am not training and losing. I mean, I ended up losing like 35 pounds,
Jeez.
which for me is insane. Like, even though I wasn't training, that's still like, that's a lot of weight for me to lose. I don't really lose weight easily.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, for you people out there, the doctors told me the number one thing that can fight cancer is muscle mass. So
Mm.
definitely, like, I mean, even if you're on chemo, if you can get in the gym and train, it's gonna help not only fight the cancer, but also just like lessen the toxicity of the chemo and stuff like that.
Dang. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because the cancer like feeds off the muscle. I mean, the cancer will
Interesting.
feed like a lot of people think, man, you would not believe the comments I get on a daily basis, but a lot of people think that sugar feeds cancer, which it does, but also anything in your body the cancer will eat because it's just like any other cell in your body. It's
Yeah.
just mutated.
Yeah.
So you can like take out sugar, but then it'll still go and attack, whatever's left. So I didn't do anything crazy like that. I just ate healthy as I already did, and I
Mm-hmm.
trained, as much as I could.
Yeah. So
If
you were,
anything, better than before.
yeah. So you were putting yourself, without you knowing, already in a good position to fight this disease that you got.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And actually, just to note, I think while I was losing my strength before I got diagnosed, I was also getting like smaller and I was losing weight too, which is like a common symptom of lymphoma. But like, especially my chest, which I don't know if that had any correlation, but there was definitely a noticeable decrease in my size. I'm sure that, I mean, that tumor was big. It was feeding off of something. So, uh, yeah, definitely without knowing it, I was making my chances a lot better.
Yeah. So if anybody's out there hearing that, get in the gym.
No,
That's just
seriously.
another reason to better your health.
Yeah, and it also just makes you feel better too, because I mean, I experienced the symptoms of chemo, nausea, fatigue, and all that. But the times that I felt it the least was like halfway through a workout and after. But there's
Okay.
times where like I'd be in the gym and I'd be so like exhausted and also maybe even a little bit nauseous. But if I push past that like 30-minute mark, or even like sometimes it'd be better. Sometimes I'd actually feel okay, but there are definitely days where I had to push through it. And I'm happy that my doctors also encouraged that because I think there's a lot of doctors out there that may be like, take it slow, play it safe, and don't do too much. But it's like, no, like you're not gonna just because you have cancer or you're on chemo, it doesn't have anything to do with working out, really. Like, you're only gonna help yourself by working out. So now, I mean, there were times where I would actually work out with the chemo bag, which, I mean, like, I may not recommend other people to do that because it's probably not the safest thing,
Mhm.
but that's how much I wanted to do it. Like, that's how important it was to me, even though, because I had, like, a bag. I did 1 round of chemo inpatient, and the rest were with a bag outpatient, so it would be, 2 48-hour bags, and I was, like, literally getting infused with chemo while squatting, which is
Wow.
pretty crazy. People were probably looking at me like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
I looked like Bane or something. If you just read the comics, or I've never read them, but I'm, like, somewhat familiar.
I hope they, this is a side topic, but I hope they make, like, a new Bane in the new Batman trilogy that they're making. I think that'd be sweet. Well, Robert Pattinson's new Batman, they're making, like, a trilogy out of it,
Okay.
and I heard rumors that they were thinking about casting Bane. I don't know how true that is, but I was, like,
Oh,
just
dude.
looking online. I don't know who it would be and how they would do it, but I think that'd be sweet.
Yeah, dude, Bane is, I think, aside from Joker in the DC universe, Bane is definitely up there
Yeah.
in the villains category.
And as far as DC goes, like, villains are s I think the villains are better. I don't wanna compare to Marvel, but I feel like they're a little bit better and they're more dark. Like, they're, like, legit villains.
I think DC does a good job at making it more, like, somewhat realistic.
Yeah.
Joker's just like I mean, he doesn't really have any powers
No, he's just
necessarily.
he's
It's
like a
like,
smart, psychotic human being.
yeah, like, you kinda get that there's a small aspect where you're like, "Wow, this is, like, somewhat possible." Like, somebody could go off the rails,
Yeah.
be like a hyper genius, and, like,
Mhm.
decide that he's just gonna create chaos.
For sure.
But I think, yeah, at least in the villain category, DC does a really good job. But there's some good villains in Marvel too. I'm actually watching the whole, like, Marvel movies all the way through in chronological order
No way.
with my wife. I
Is
think
that a f is that a first time watch or is that a rewatch?
most of them are rewatch. I think so far I've seen all of them. We just watched Iron Man 3. So, like, it starts with Hulk, then it's like Iron Man, the first Iron Man, and then
And
I
then
think,
it's Thor, and then it's Captain America, right? It's like the first thing, and then it's the Avengers.
yeah. I think, well, Iron Man 2 is somewhere in between, but yeah.
Well, yeah, they made 2 Iron Man movies.
Yeah, I just watched Iron Man 3. I don't know if I've seen that, but it was like, it was alright. First and
Yeah.
second were definitely better.
I thought the ending was good. See, you're talking to like like a nerd. I love superheroes. One of my favorite shows is Invincible, and I cannot wait for that to come back in March. That's like one of my I've read the comics, so I know what happens because I'm
Mhm.
just they had that at my local library, and I watched the
Oh,
first season
nice.
and was like, "There's gotta be I can't wait." Because they waited what 2.5 years until they posted the next season. So I was like, all right, I need to go read it. And then I read everything, and now I'm just waiting for everything to play out. But it's even more satisfying to see it be, like, on screen.
Oh, yeah, that show is incredible.
Yeah.
Actually, getting somewhat back on topic now, I think I watched Invincible season 1 and 2,
Mhm.
like, way back, and then while we were in the hospital, and we're fast forwarding a bit, but we were in Inova, so Fairfax, Virginia, and I decided to watch it again with my wife. She ended up loving it, so I was like, "Okay, cool." And then we got to season 3, and I was like, "Wait, I haven't seen this before."
Yeah.
And I was, like, so disconnected from the rest of the world that I didn't even realize that they made a new season. And then before we knew it, we were, like, waiting every week for the next episode while we were in the hospital. So that's, like, Definitely Invincible will always be a very memorable show for me because it was the best part about being in the hospital because it was just like a nice distraction from all the
Yeah.
pain and like everything going on.
Mhm.
So love Invincible.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I really like about that show is it's not your typical superhero show. It's very out there. It's kind of vulgar at times. I mean, it's a bloody, murderous show, but like it has a lot of a lot of simplicity to it. It's very nice at times. It's wholesome, but it's
Yeah.
also like the main character gets beat up so much, and it's it's like you're like, okay, is he ever gonna like not get his butt whooped? And I feel like a lot of people relate to that, and maybe you related to that when you were in the hospital. Like maybe I'm kind of like Mark, and you kind of associated yourself with that character because he was going through such a hard time. Like, I mean, for people that don't know Invincible, and you're listening to this now, but Invincible, the whole first season is we find out that Mark, the main character, his dad's kind of evil and he tries to take over the world and he has to fight his dad. And that's a whole traumatic experience that he goes through. And it's like every season there's just more and more grief that gets piled up on Mark's shoulders, and it's kind of tragic to see such like a good kid to start off become this guy who's just constantly getting beat up and from all these fights and emotionally just in distress. So maybe you associated yourself with Mark at the time, and maybe he helped you actually in times of great trial. I feel like.
I mean, yeah, I guess I could see the correlation. Also with like him having to grow up fast because I mean in the show I think he's like 17 during
Yeah, I mean he was a teen. He was
like the
like early
first season.
teenager. Yeah.
So like for me it was like my life escalated so quickly. Like I got married, I moved to a different continent,
Hmm.
then I got cancer. So it was like it was a lot of growing up really fast.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of making me feel somewhat different than the rest of the population, I guess, because not a lot of people go through what I've been through at a young age, fortunately. So yeah, I can see the correlation. I don't know if I realized that at the time,
Hmm.
but at the very least, it was a great distraction. It's a really good show. But yeah.
So I'm interested in your kind of motivation to get better. And because I know you said you didn't really think about powerlifting at the time when you heard the news. It was all about your family. It was all about your wife, um, which is probably the most important thing, obviously. But I'm interested, like, what got you through? I know we talked about a little bit about God in the beginning and how maybe He sent that trial to you to test you. It could have been like that. But what got you through that hard time?
Well, I would say that I think this was the enemy's plan to
Mm,
destroy me all along, and I think God used it for his glory rather than it destroying me. So I don't think a lot of people would say like, "Oh, well, maybe God gave you cancer so you could experience these things and like stuff like that." But I don't think God gave me cancer. I think we live in a world full of sin,
yeah.
and I think bad things can happen randomly. I think in this particular situation, I do believe that it was a direct attack from the enemy.
Mm,
But I think obviously God is what brought me through it, and Him being Christ being my foundation.
mhm,
So without that, I really don't like if this would have happened to me years ago when I had fallen away from the faith.
mhm,
I don't know how I would have reacted.
yeah.
I really don't, which is crazy because growing up, especially in like high school, I always thought I was gonna die young. which was weird. I didn't know why. I just had this feeling I was gonna like die in a car crash or like OD or something. Well, I mean, especially at the time I was like struggling with addiction and stuff. But
What type of addiction?
I just like, I mean, mostly weed. I was like smoking every day, alcohol,
Okay.
some pills, psychedelics. I was a messed up kid. So I thought that, which that's like more part of like my testimony coming to the faith. But I think, yeah, in high school, I thought I was going to die young for whatever reason. And I think that may have been the enemy's plan for a while now.
Hmm.
I think this may have been like a long time coming. And actually, like my brother's had dreams where he's seen, this is crazy actually. So I got rehospitalized several months through after chemo. Not after
Okay.
chemo, like down the road through chemo. I got
Mm-hmm.
rehospitalized. And on that night that I got rehospitalized, it was like 3 in the morning. Me and my wife went to the ER because I was like, I could barely breathe. But we didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to scare anybody. I didn't want to wake anyone up. It wasn't like life or death. We were just going to the ER to get a quick, you know, to get care quickly. But that night, my brother had this dream. And during the dream, it was like this whole thing. During the dream, there was this demonic figure that was at the end of the dream. It was like it reached out for my chest, right where the tumor is. And then, like, the dream ended. And he had no idea that I was in the hospital. And then I later texted him that day. I was like, hey, just letting you guys know, like, I'm back in the hospital. Should be okay. I think I ended up having to get I had to get 2 more chest tubes.
Okay.
But it's stuff like that where it kind of shows me that this is definitely demonic and like a
Yeah.
spiritual attack and not just random chance. Because I think a lot of stuff in this world that happens to us is just like somewhat random because we live in a fallen world of sin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're talking bigger picture, I think when you give your life to Christ, that's when God is making the bad things work for you in a good way.
Yeah.
That's why I say I don't think God gave me cancer. I think
Mm-hmm.
the enemy tried to destroy me with cancer, but instead God's a God of redemption. He took that plan and ended up turning it into something beautiful, something that
Yeah.
I can share as a testimony
Mm-hmm.
and bring glory to God and like show what's possible with him being your foundation. Cause like I said, you asked me what got me through all that, and it's I cannot give any credit other than to Jesus.
Mm.
I have a good verse for that, talking about Christ being our foundation. So, okay, there's this like passage where it's in Matthew 7:24. So Jesus says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock.
Mm.
But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. So, from my perspective, in the past, I actually idolized powerlifting, and that was my foundation.
Mm.
I got injured or I wasn't able to train, it would really affect my mood and just
Hurt your
my
identity almost.
right. Yeah, it would hurt my identity because my identity was I am a powerlifter.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, now my identity is in Christ
Mm.
and he's my foundation. And now when I can't powerlift, it still sucks, but it's not like make or break because I always have Christ because he's my
Mm.
rock. I built my house on him. So that is what got me through everything. And also having a great community around me. like my family, my wife,
Mm-hmm.
which is an incredible support system. But yeah, that's what
Dude,
brought me through.
that's amazing. I actually just finished Matthew. I'm going through the New Testament now. And I don't know if you know the show The Chosen. I actually just started watching that with my dad. It's a story about Jesus. I think it's like 6 seasons, something like that. Started that, watched that last night, and I read a passage of Matthew. I don't remember where exactly it is. I wish I had my Bible with me right now. I do. It's in my room, but it's like way. I'd have to get up to go get it, and I don't want to leave the conversation. But Jesus talks about how he comes down to earth, and he is here to redeem people, to have like their redemption. And I think it's really beautiful because in Matthew he talks about he's with all of his disciples, he's with all of the quote unquote lowlifes and people that, don't have a lot going for them, and he's sitting there eating with them. And there are these Pharisees that come in and they're talking to Matthew, who answers the door and says, "Why is Jesus eating with, if he's the chosen one, why is he eating with people of not good, what's the word for it? People
Like
that aren't
at the time, they probably call them like peasants or
peasants, and yeah, that's a good word
lower
for it.
class.
People who aren't well regarded in society at the time."
Yeah.
And what I found interesting is Jesus then comes up to the Pharisees and he says, I don't know the exact quote, but it's like, I really wish I had my Bible with me because it's such a strong verse. And he
Do you know
talks
what
about,
chapter it's in?
I think it's in towards the end. I think it's like 27, 28 or something like that. But he talks about like, I'm here to not provide like redemption to the righteousness, but I'm here to essentially help the unfortunate. I'm here to help people that are in need of me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. And I can definitely relate to that. And that's like goes along too with like my whole motto where it's like you see true strength after you become weak.
Mm,
Because like I said in the beginning, when we get smaller, when we decrease, when we're low, when we're peasants, when we're poor, all that stuff, it leaves so much more room for God. Not that God is infinite. God is already
mhm,
as big as he is. It's just that in our own lives, when we get smaller, it leaves more room for God in our lives. So I think that's why Paul is saying it's kind of like a blessing almost,
mhm,
like our infirmities and our weaknesses, just because when, when we're talking about true strength, that's
mhm.
God. Like
Yeah.
all the good I am is God. All the strength that anybody sees is from God. And that's why you see it at its fullest when you're weak, really. And God loves to use weak people for I don't want to necessarily say weak people because it's not that like I was weak and but
You were
God uses people who are like who need it, who he's the redeemer, and yeah. So it's so beautiful. It's like it's such a I don't know. It's hard to put it into words, but it's
no,
very
yeah.
beautiful.
So you mentioned the devil was kind of you felt it was a personal attack to you, and you even mentioned your brother having a dream, which was honestly crazy to hear about. I like people who don't believe in Christianity and things like that, they might be like agnostic or things like that. I actually have a few friends that are like that and they don't, and we'll have like genuine conversations where it's honestly interesting to hear their perspective on it. But when you say things like that, like your brother had an actual dream that represented a time, when you actually went to the hospital and he didn't even know you were there. So how could his brain fathom and make something up like that? You know what I mean? If he doesn't know. Cuz usually like I don't know if you've had. I mean, you definitely have dreams, obviously. But like for example, when I go to work and I've had a really long day and I've worked a bunch of hours, I'll come home and it's hard for me to sleep because like I used to. My brain is so active still, I'll have dreams about being at work, and it's like I'm not actually like getting the rest I need because I still think I need to work and I need to do all these things. It kind of sucks, but
No, I get that. I'm kind of similar. My
yeah.
brain
But
is
it's like your brain will you'll dream about things that you've experienced that day or that week. So if your brother had that dream and he doesn't know anything about what your situation is, how can that be? It's almost like it is a message from maybe the devil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, that was like one of many reasons we kind of knew it was a spiritual attack and it was demonic because I mean, yeah, at the very least the timing of it was crazy because obviously
Mhm.
my brother was a part of this and he had I'm sure his own struggles with it, like watching his little brother go through cancer. So it makes sense that he might have a dream like that. I'm just trying to look at it from the perspective of somebody who's trying to like,
No,
you know,
I appreciate it. That's kind of
discount it.
yeah.
But sure, we could say all that. You know, it might be normal for him to have some sort of nightmare about it. But
Mhm.
he didn't have any dream. He dreams often, by the way, like almost every night. But for him to like not be dreaming at all about it, and then all of a sudden, the night of, it's very hard to look at something like that and brush it under the rug. Like, oh, it's just a coincidence. Like come
Yeah.
on. And not to mention, me and my brother growing up, we used to have the same dreams, sometimes on the same night even. That's like a whole nother thing. And this is just like one of for anyone out there who's skeptical. I mean, I've in a way been kind of fortunate where I've seen a lot of things and experienced a lot of things in my life that show me like, you know, that there is a spiritual world. Like I've seen demons with my own
Mhm.
eyes.
Yeah.
I've experienced, demonic things, especially in my childhood. I have tons and tons of stories. But yeah, like there's definitely something spiritual going on with this. And I mean even still residually, like we now have our household goods. So like in the army, they ship all your stuff, and we've been waiting on our household goods for over a year now, which has been like another struggle because it's been like we packed for 3 weeks, and that's what we've been living off of for a year. But now that we have all our stuff back, there's
Yeah.
certain smells in the house that would like remind me of laying in the bed and being
Jeez.
like super sick, and
Mhm.
it's like very unsettling. And maybe part of it's just memory, and I don't know if you could call it like maybe PTSD to a certain extent, just,
No,
traumatic
you
stuff.
could yeah, you could definitely associate PTSD with that.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. And it could be a little bit of that, but I definitely think there's a spiritual aspect to it, at least residually. So,
That's great. I mean, it's interesting because I like to talk to a lot of people and see their view on how they view spirituality and if they think because to me, it's hard to wrap my head around the fact that when you die, there's nothing else. Like it just nothing else happens. I can't wrap my head around that. And I don't know, when I came to Christ, which actually wasn't too long ago, I've actually talked about it on my podcast before, but when I came to Christ, it was just a really bad low point. Obviously, maybe not as bad as yours, but it was at a time where I was losing who I was. And I asked God for help, and things worked out a lot better than like he got me through what I was dealing with at that point in my life. And before, I had always, quote unquote, believed in God. I grew up in a Catholic setting. Now I lean towards more of just being Christian. I go to a different church now, like a non-denominational church, just because I feel like the Catholic, like my whole family's Catholic, and I'm the only like Christian, quote unquote. But I couldn't like this the whole idea of all the sacraments Like, I think more meaning there's much more meaning to it than just the sacraments. Like, the Catholics believe you have to believe in all of the sacraments and you have to receive all of them throughout your life. I don't
Well,
believe that
according
point.
to Galatians, which we're both reading right now,
Yeah.
I don't think that tracks biblically. But I mean, I can see why they. I've yeah, I've heard the Catholic spiel many, many times, and Orthodox. I actually have a friend who is Orthodox. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're all the body of Christ. I try not to like dwell too much on it because I find that like people just end up arguing so much within the faith.
Yeah.
But I'm the same. I grew up in a Christian household, not Catholic, but I was like I believed in God. I kind of went on and off.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, I believed. It was just very weak. And then throughout high school and stuff, I believed in, I didn't know what I believed in. I considered like maybe we're in a simulation, maybe there's probably a
Mm.
God, there's probably an afterlife, but I don't know. So I went through like all kinds of ideas.
Yeah, all types of phases. I was kind of the kid that would, like, believe in God and ask for, like, materialistic things, and then when I wouldn't receive them, I'd be like, "Well, like, why wasn't my prayer answered?" kinda thing. But
Yeah.
I think, I remember praying for a car. I was like, "Oh, God, I really want my first car." And I would pray to him about that. And, yeah, I eventually got a car, but it was much later and through different circumstances. So, I mean, it's so weird, 'cause I feel like God will answer your prayers, but in a way that you don't expect. Like, for example, like I talked about with the car. I wanted a car, but maybe I lacked the discipline to earn a bunch of money to get the car, to afford one, you know? Because my dad helped me a little bit pay for the car itself. So, and I don't think I was working at the time yet, but he helped me get a job. I worked as a mechanic for 4 years and then I got my first car. So maybe he sends you signs or he helps you get the thing you want in a sense, but it's not like, boom, snap your fingers, here's a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there's power in prayer, and we're called to, ask for things that we want, and we're also called to not worry about the things that we need, because there's things that we need, like shelter and food and stuff like that, and those are the things we're not supposed to worry about, but
Yeah.
it's not wrong to pray for things that aren't a necessity, but maybe rather a want. But I think as we grow in our faith, what's important to know is when we're asking for something, we should be praying for discernment and on how does this align with God's will?
Mm,
Am I open to not receiving this, even though I think
yeah.
I want it?
Mhm.
Because God may be refraining from giving you something because he's closing a door that he knows needs to be closed. Like,
Mm,
for example, if you're like, I really want this job promotion, and then you're praying about it and you feel good, you feel prepared, and then all of a sudden, they give it to someone else. And then you're like, well, what the heck, God? And
mhm.
then, in the moment, it might be, you're going to feel angry, you're going to feel confused, but then maybe down the road, you realize, oh, like that door needed to be closed because
Yeah.
I actually was actually supposed to change career paths and go down this one, and it would be much more fruitful, much more fulfilling.
Mhm.
Maybe even not even necessarily more pay. I just mean like more fruitful in the sense of you're carrying out God's will for your life.
Mm.
And I think people love to cherry pick that verse is like, oh, asking you shall receive.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, yes, but you also have to be aligned with God's will. And the Holy Spirit
Mhm.
will refine your heart and you'll start to want the things that God wants and cut out the things that God doesn't want. I think definitely And you really need an open mind too.
Mm,
It takes a lot of patience to maintain that, and everyone has their ups and downs. But I think I'm thankful for God giving me peace through like the cancer and stuff because I never really jumped off the deep end. I mean, there were moments of panic, but it was mostly like physical because I was like coughing up blood or something like that. But
mhm.
generally, I had a overwhelming peace from Jesus, and I just knew like I knew I'd be okay. I didn't even know that it would turn into like something. Honestly, I think it turned out to be. I'm kind of glad it happened in a weird way.
Mhm.
I'm kind of glad it happened.
Yeah. Well, look at your life this way. Let's say that you did not get diagnosed with cancer. Where do you think you'd be today? How
Still,
different would your story look?
yeah. Well, I'd definitely still be in Italy,
Mhm.
which would have been a challenge because around the time I got diagnosed, I just got my visa to work. Before then, I wasn't even legally allowed to work. But even though I got the visa to work, I was like, I don't even know what am I gonna do? Like I can either work on base. I couldn't work off base unless I think maybe I could have got a special permission, but it was kind of like pretty much not allowed. And the base was very small, so there was not a lot of
Mhm.
options. I was actually searching, and it was like grocery store bagger, like not like a long term thing. So other than that, there was online work, which was scarce as well, but also 6 hour time difference. It's like almost impossible. So it was cool to be in Italy, but I think it would have really been a struggle to find work.
Yeah.
And I see that as one of the benefits of all of this, because there would have been, I mean, I'm sure you have an idea of how army works, but there would have been no other way out of getting out of Italy other than
Mhm.
something really bad happening like this, where we
Mhm.
had to get reassigned so I could be treated, which is funny because by the time they did it, I was already done. Yeah, I think in that sense, like career-wise, it looked a lot different. Now I'm a trainer. We just moved to Maryland, so I just got a new job. Most likely, I wouldn't have been able to do something like that in Italy. Other than that, though, I mean, I would not have as much eyes on me. Not that I want attention or something. I see it as a good way to, especially in the powerlifting community, to point more people to God. That's always my goal with everything I post.
Mhm.
Anytime I talk to anybody, like I said before in this podcast, like if anybody sees good in me, I hope they know it's from God. And I
Yeah.
just want to be a reflection of God at all times.
Mhm.
And now that, something crazy like this happened to me, it gave me a platform
Mhm.
and a cool story to share that. And also just like a huge purpose, which was something I was
For sure.
praying for a lot,
Mhm.
especially in Italy.
Yeah.
I just felt pretty purposeless. So
Mm.
it's very, very nice to have a greater purpose now with this testimony. And
Yeah.
again, had none of this happened, I wouldn't have that type of story. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely like many, many things would be very different right now in my
Mhm.
life had this all not happened.
So this is not a coincidence at all, I swear. I worked out yesterday with a friend of mine who I met at my job. She's a server and she previously had cancer and she is done with chemo and she's gotten past it. She's beaten it. Um, and she's getting back into lifting. She wasn't like a power lifter like you or a bodybuilder like me, but she was just heavy into fitness. She liked to run, she liked to lift weights, things of that nature. So I worked out with her yesterday, and I actually told her I was having this conversation with you, and she was like, "Oh, that's so awesome." And then I actually have a friend of a friend who he recently did his bodybuilding show, and the whole reason he said prep was so easy is because one of his friends was diagnosed with cancer. So what would you say is maybe a piece of advice you could give maybe that person or somebody who, even anybody who's out there struggling with an illness?
So like the bodybuilder's friend, you're saying?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm always gonna fall back on God. I mean,
Mhm.
like I said before, that is what got me through it, and not only through this, but anything in life. And even if you're not going through something, I think God is just always gonna enhance your life. It's a loaded question, you know. There's a lot of things I could say to give advice to a person like that going through an illness, whatever it is, or maybe even like a mental illness.
Yeah.
But I would just say that Christ is there for you and he wants to take it. He wants to take that weight off of you and put it on that cross and end it.
Yeah.
And I think just it's as easy as accepting that. And
Mhm.
once you do, it's the most freeing, important decision you could ever make in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really get there's not much more advice I could give other than that.
Mhm.
Like that's number one important thing. Other than that, I could go and like I have tips on like how to deal with chemo, which might be helpful.
Mhm.
Like I tracked my I actually tracked my micronutrients on top of
Interesting.
my macros, and that actually made a huge difference as far as how I felt on chemo. And I know this because one day I didn't do it, and I even ate my macros, but I just didn't do well with my micronutrients, and I felt
Yeah.
way worse. So that's like a more practical advice, I guess, I could give as far as nutrition and like dealing with the chemo because there's a couple of workarounds.
If strength isn't, just about weight on the bar, you and your almost what I think is about to be an 800-pound total, or not 800, 1,800-pound total, excuse me.
No, no, 800 kilo. So
800 kilo. Oh
yeah, I
my.
think that's like
So, so
1700 so. Well, that's
1,700.
that's my goal. I'm still quite a ways.
Yeah, but I don't see you not reaching that goal, to be honest. So if strength isn't about, the weight on, your squat, bench, and deadlifts, how do you define strength now that you've gone through cancer and survived it?
Well, definitely like relating it back to my first point. I mean, a lot of people can be good at powerlifting, a lot of people can be strong, but I think the true strength is mental and just like pushing through adversity and sticking to it, staying consistent and just like yeah, just standing in the face of adversity and continuing on regardless.
Mhm.
I think that makes people truly strong because anybody when they're healthy with good circumstances can do relatively well in powerlifting, but it's like, what are you gonna do when stuff doesn't go your way?
Yeah.
And I'm not even just talking about not necessarily getting cancer, but even smaller things like, okay, you're in finishing up your degree, or you got a job,
Mhm.
you're working as well, all these things. It's like, what are you gonna do still, even despite those things that are holding you
Yeah.
back? I think that's where true strength. I think that's truly strong, not just like weight on the bar strong, but like mentally strong.
Mhm. Awesome, man. Jacob Green, everybody.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Your story is truly inspiring. That's why I really wanted to have you on. I think you got a lot of good insight about, spirituality and then just having pure hard grit to fight through those hard times. What you're doing now, I mean, going for a 1,700 pound total was crazy, 800 kg. I'm rooting for you.
I appreciate that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.